Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is John Viglotti. On behalf of OTC Markets, as well as our co-host, Zacks Small Cap Research, we're very pleased you joined us for our Life Sciences Investor Forum. We kick off today with a live presentation from Redsense Medical. Please note you can submit questions for the presenters in the box to the left of the slides, and you can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Brad Sorensen. He is the Chief Equity Research Analyst with Zacks Small Cap Research, and Pontus Nubrius, Chief Executive Officer of Redsense Medical AB, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol RDSNF and on the Spotlight Market under the symbol REDS. Welcome, Brad and Pontus.
Thank you. Great to be here. Good morning, Pontus, or should I say good evening, since you're overseas in Sweden. I appreciate you joining us. And yeah, very excited to learn about this company. As a life sciences analyst, I came across this company and got to talk to Pontus, and they're addressing a problem that I hate to say I didn't even know existed. So I'm going to kick it off with letting Pontus explain kind of just a high level view of what the company does, because it is very groundbreaking and important to many, many patients, and then why it is important to patients. So Pontus, go ahead and kind of take it from there.
Thank you so much, Brad, for that introduction, and very pleased to be here this morning and kick this off. And I'm going to take you through Redsense. But first, I want to say talk about the challenge that we are addressing. And every week, 21 persons actually die globally because of a venous needle is dislodged during hemodialysis. So I'll be talking about how Redsense is addressing that challenge and how we can improve patient safety and also save lives of hemodialysis patients. But before that, just quickly about myself. I joined Redsense Medical in August last year, and I have a background in business development, sales, and leadership in international settings, having worked abroad 10 years, 2 times in the US and also in South Africa. Been working mostly for small and mid-sized companies, covering products such as lab tech, diagnostics, medical devices, and pharmaceuticals. And I really have a passion about business development and sales when it comes to products that can save the life of patient. And the question is, why did I actually become interested in Redsense? Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, a product that is very important, that is a life-saving product, but also a product that is regulatory approved, that is clinically accepted and commercially viable in probably the largest medical device market in the world, in the US. And also a company with solid growth plans and in a scale-up phase. I want to kick this off with actually talking about a real-life story. It's about an elderly gentleman doing hemodialysis in a clinic. When you go to a clinic and get the hemodialysis performed, that takes several hours, 3-4 hours, and this elderly gentleman, he was lying in his bed, he was relaxing, reading a newspaper and sleeping. Everything worked well. The nurse checked in. But suddenly there was a dislodgement of the venous needle. Blood started to leak. It came out in the bed and eventually on the floor. Then when the nurse returned, she did see this, a lot of floor on the ground, and unfortunately at that time the bleeding was quite severe, and this patient was bleeding out and his life could not be saved. So venous needle dislodgement is a quite serious problem that happens too often. So what is hemodialysis? Well, if you reach the stage of an end-stage renal disease, when the kidneys stop working, you need to have some sort of kidney replacement therapy. And the most common way of treatment is to be on lifelong hemodialysis. And what you actually do is that you use an artificial kidney, which is the machine, the hemodialysis machine. You connect that with needles from the patient and blood tubes. You take the blood out of the patient, goes into the machine, it's cleaned in the machine, circulated back to the patient, and that goes on for many hours. And you do that at quite high flow rate, about 0.5 liters per minute. And should there be any leakage, like a venous needle dislodgement, it can quickly become a serious situation. As I mentioned before, you can actually die out of it. Even though if you don't die, you can get into serious complication. You may have to go to the emergency room, a lot of patient suffering, a lot of cost for the healthcare provider and the payer. And you have to remember, when you do this, you only have 5 liters of blood in the system, and you can bleed out in 3 to 5 minutes. So this can be a very serious situation. Then you may ask yourself, when you have those modern machines, hemodialysis machine, wouldn't they be able to take care of this problem? Not really, because in 71% of the cases, the machine cannot even theoretically take care of this pressure difference that will occur when you have a venous needle dislodgement. And that is how Redsense comes into the picture. Redsense is a Swedish medtech company, and it all started back in year 2000 in a small southwestern city called Halmstad in Sweden. In that dialysis clinic, there was quite a big problem with VNDs, and the local hospital engineer thought there must be a way of solving this problem. And he got in contact with some people in Halmstad, and actually a project was started and a prototype was developed, and in 2006 Redsense was founded. So what we do, we have a solution that is based on fiber optics. We have an alarm unit. From that alarm unit we generate a specific light. That light goes via a fiber optic cable, and in the end of that we put in a non-invasive sensor patch, as you can see in the middle of this slide. And by the way, I can actually also show you what it looks like live. This is the alarm unit, and here is the fiber optic cable. In the end you have this sensor patch. That sensor patch goes on top of the venous needle, and should there be any blood leakage, blood will quickly be absorbed in the sensor patch, and we will immediately pick that up with our special light, and we will have an alarm, a loud alarm coming out of the alarm unit, and it will also start flashing to get the attention of the nurse or the caregiver, or even the patient, should you do this by yourself or when you sleep. You can also do this, it's called nocturnal, so there are different ways of doing it. So if we look at the system, I mentioned the alarm unit. You can see that to the left on the slide here. It's very easy to use. I would say plug and play unit. One bottom should be easy for the patient to use. It's placed close to the machine and the patient, and then you have the fiber optic cable. And of course this alarm unit you can use over and over again. And then you have the non-invasive disposable, the sensor patches. We have two versions, one that covers a venous needle called venous sensor patch, and then we have another one that is a little bit larger should you have a catheter, because that also common to use a catheter, even though the venous sensor patch is the most used. So you use one of those for every treatment. That's important. I should also point out that this is the only FDA-cleared blood loss detection system on the market in the US, and of course it's also CE marked. We view this as a safety belt when you dialyze. Like you go into the car, you always buckle up with a safety belt. We would like to see the same thing happen with a monitoring system for venous needle dislodgement. However, we also realize that some patients are more at risk than others. And if you look in the clinic, there are 20% of the patients that are more at risk. And these patients are typically the ones that cover the arm, the access point during dialysis. You may be a little bit cold, so you want to cover your body. So that's quite common. Could also be patients that are a little bit older, confused, and moving a lot in the bed or the chair. Interestingly enough, if you're in the corner in the clinic, you're at much higher risk, and that is because you don't have any nurses coming around that often. You may not have a patient around you to observe if there is a leakage. Of course, if you do it in a single room or doing it during the night, then you're also at higher risk. The other way of doing it is at home, which is growing fastest. Of course, as of today, the most common way is in the clinic, but home hemodialysis is gaining popularity. And of course, then you don't have really a nursing infrastructure close by. So, and you can do it in different ways. You can do it solo, you can have a caregiver, you can do it in the night. But nevertheless, you are here at 100% risk. So that is a quick overview of the product itself and how it can be used to save life and minimize adverse events.
Thanks, Bonus. Gosh, I have so many questions to ask. I'm amazed that it's taken this long to get there. I would have never known that this was a huge problem, and I'm glad we're finally addressing it. It obviously can affect thousands and thousands of patients. So I guess let's see where to start. Well, I guess the first question that comes is you mentioned one condition that this affects, but can this have implications for other intravenous situations, other conditions in the future? Do you see this being used in wider range of situations?
When you look at dialysis, that can be performed in different settings, and I should maybe point out that as of today, we are mostly in the home hemodialysis setting, and if you look at that market, and I should also say that we are actually mostly in the US. That's our main market. We had 99% of our revenue in the US 2022. And that market, it's about 12,000 patients in the US currently on home hemodialysis. But there are so many benefits with home hemodialysis, both from the clinical outcome, from the patient point of view, and from the economical point of view. So we still have growth opportunity there, but then the really large market and potential would be in the clinics. And just to give you a sort of feeling for that, in the US you have about close to 500,000 patients that goes to a clinic 3 times a week to get the blood treated. And if you take 20% risk patient there, well, that's 100,000 patients. That's 10 times bigger market than for the home hemodialysis. So for us, we still have a lot to do in this type of application, sort of. But of course, you can also think about acute care. So that but still, we have a lot to do in the dialysis setting still.
Yeah, so you are moving into the U.S. in an increasing way. Are you increasing marketing spending? Are you increasing distribution? What's the distribution like? Just, I guess, kind of go through how you're expanding your U.S. operations.
Absolutely. So a good question. So if you look at the value chain today and how the market looks in the US, you have mostly for-profit company that performs the dialysis service. And there are 2 main companies, I would say some of the largest dialysis companies in the world, and that is Fresenius Medical Care and DaVita. And they have sort of 80% of the market in the US. And they are a customer of us. They use our system, again, mostly in home settings. And the way we work in the US is that we also have some distribution partners, companies that you probably heard of, like Cardinal Health and Henry Schein, that help us distribute the product. And also we have a small sales team that are out with the nurses, the doctors, and promote our product. So And another important driver here is actually more when it comes to the market access point of view, and that is political initiatives. There is actually a bill, the Home Dialysis Risk Prevention Act, that was introduced in the House of Representatives in May this year. That's a bill that will provide for Medicare coverage of a monitoring device to alarm and detect for venous needle dislodgement. Because as of today, it's not included in the bundle, in the medical bundle. So that is really a big drive, and also all the initiatives that comes to increase the number of patients going home for many reasons.
Right. And that was actually leads into my next question that I was going
Yeah.
to ask, because here in the United States, we use mostly it's private insurance that covers these things, but there's also the Medicare, obviously, which is a big market. And also the VA covers a lot of our
Right.
service veterans. And I noticed you have a relationship with the VA, that they've approved it, I think you said. So just where you mentioned the Medicare is still in process of getting approved. Do you know where are you with insurance companies approving this for use? And then the VA is speak to that as
Mm.
well.
I think when it comes to private insurance company, if you look at the structure, most people that rely on dialysis, I would say, are on the Medicare, because typically this disease hits, a lot of elderly people, and of course there are also people that are on private insurances, but there is a certain time limit how long you can be that, then you are moving over to the Medicare system. So I would
Right.
say that the Medicare bill to provide that coverage is extremely important for the providers, and for us, of course, and for the patient. Because as of today, again, it's not in the bundle. So it's up to the sort of the goodwill of providers and patient if they want to have it included. And that's why it's so important that it has been recognized by the Congress that this is actually a problem. We want everybody to have a safe setting to do the dialysis at home and provide all good security devices that you can. So that is an important piece for our to move forward.
Right. And I can hear investors in the United States kind of shaking their heads at the mention of Congress, because they're not real popular right now in the United States.
No?
But this should be a it should be a bipartisan issue. Obviously, saving patients' lives, that should be something they should be able to get through. Um, like I said, I was kind of surprised that this didn't already exist on the market. It seems like this was an obvious solution. I'm glad you guys came up with it. Uh, what are your patent protections on this technology?
Yeah, we have a pretty good protection with different patent covering the different parts. So it's quite comprehensive, and we when we do that, we choose, of course, main markets that make sense to have the patent protection. Absolutely. So that is, yeah. So that is in good hands. So we have some good people that help us with that as well.
And then, obviously, moving into more markets and expanding your US coverage, do you have the distribution available? Do you have the manufacturing available to cover an increased demand? I saw, and we'll talk about this in just a minute, but your growth
Mhm.
rate of 2002 over 2020, 2022 over 23 was quite substantial. Do you have the capacity to be able to continue that kind of growth pattern?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Absolutely. And we, like you say, we had a very nice growth rate. I think we had 4 quarters in a row with growth. And of course, that puts a little bit, strain on our supply chain. But we actually managed pretty well. And now with that in hand, we look forward to the coming years so that we do a good forecast. And we have a lot of things outsourced to different partners that are doing both the sort of the alarm unit and then the fiber technology, the sensors, different partners that specialize in that. So they are aware of our plans, and so we work quite hard on the supply chain side to make sure that, I mean, should we have the Medicare coverage coming in, of course, that will mean a
Yeah.
ramp up in number of alarm units and sensor patches. So yes, so we have that in mind, and I think we managed pretty well. Can you just explain the way it looks like? It can look a little bit. Sometimes it goes up and down when it comes into the orders, because our distributors, they place large orders with us that we ship from Sweden to their warehouses, and then they sell to the providers. So that means that sometimes it can be a large order coming in the end of the quarter. Sometimes it may come in the beginning of a quarter. So it can be a little bit bumpy ride.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I guess on that, is the manufacturing all done in Sweden?
Yeah, part of it. We have our alarm units are produced in Sweden, and our sensor patches are produced in Asia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. But
And I want to just get in one more of my questions, and then I'll get to the audience questions. I'm sorry, I don't want to ignore them, but I have so
yeah,
many questions I want to
yeah.
get to. um, and this will actually tie in with a question the audience kind of had, but what are future markets? I noticed that you have a potential future product that you're working on. Do you want to address that quickly,
Mm,
that you might have that might be
mm.
the future of the company and add to the growth rate?
Absolutely. We have actually an accessory to the alarm unit called a clamp, because I mentioned before that the challenge is with a hemodialysis machine, it does not stop, if you have
No,
this
right.
pressure difference. So we are addressing that by having a smart, it's quite simple solution actually. It's a product that will clamp the bloodline. So if we have an alarm, the clamp uh, talks wirelessly to the alarm unit, and it will clamp the bloodline, pressure the bloodline so hard on the venous side that the machine will actually stop. It will be forced to stop.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is a solution that can be used independent of machine, and of course also the alarm unit is independent of any type of hemodialysis machine. But that is to, I mean, to make it perfectly secure for a patient, to make sure if there is an alarm, we also make sure that the machine is stopped, so you can take care of the bleeding, and really, so you don't have to worry about the machine, because otherwise you need to also to think about machine. I need to stop the machine, and yeah. So that is a very important product to especially for home hemodialysis.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. And this goes into the first, this will follow up perfectly with the
Mm.
first client question that we get was, when do you expect the clamp to go on sale? Do you
Mm.
have an expectation of the first time that can go on
Mm.
sale?
Absolutely. So what we do now, we are just finalizing the last step in our CE mark. We do a usability study in Canada that we need to finalize the CE marking, and we are doing that right now. So we expect to have a launch first half year next year is probably what we are aiming at when we finalize
In
everything.
2024?
Yeah, 24. Yeah, correct. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
and yeah, and I can point out that the countries that are of interest, obviously CE mark does not cover the US market. I can come back to that, but we are looking at countries like Canada and Australia and UK and Europe, and typically Canada and Australia are countries that have high portion of home hemodialysis. So, and they're very interested in this product. So,
Yeah, I could see why.
yeah.
Um, let's see. There's so many questions here. I will. Yeah, and I'm getting towards the end of my time, so I'm going to end with this one with my questions. And I don't know if you have any idea with this, but I wonder this too. How likely, it does seem important. What have you gotten the feeling of how likely is it that the bill will be passed eventually in the relatively near future for the Medicare approval?
Yeah, that's a $10,000 question, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
I was actually in DC last week. I spent a lot of time, many meetings in the Congress this fall, and it has been like everyone know, a little bit, up and down. There were no speaker in the House of Representatives for a while, and the many things that is knocking on the door, and many bills that need to. So it's difficult to say. I can't really, um, the
Right.
thing is,
No, I understand. I thought
yeah,
that would be it,
uh,
but I wanted to throw that out there.
yeah, but what I can say is that we from our side, try to create a lot of awareness in different ways via different organizations like American Association of Kidney Patients and other organizations, and also we had a briefing at the Hill in end of September to highlight this. So we work quite hard, on our end because this is important for American patients that we get this in place.
Yep, I agree, and I hope it does get passed because
Mm.
that's what Congress is there for.
Yeah.
Anyway, Pontus, I want to thank you. I'm going to give you a chance to give your contact information and kind of close up and tell investors anything else you'd like to take them. But I really enjoyed this conversation. I wish we had another half hour because I have a lot of other questions, but thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brad, and thank you for everybody that has been tuning in. And of course, you're always welcome and come back to me with any questions. You can easily email me on pontus.nobreus@redsensemedical.com, and you can also schedule one-to-one meetings with me. And look forward to discuss further. And thank you everybody for